What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Nate's Favorites. This is a segment on my channel where I choose some of my favorite films and talk about them with you in great detail. And I'm really excited to talk about this movie with you today. I've actually reviewed this movie on the channel before, but this was really early in me releasing videos. This was probably one of the first, I imagine, 10 or 11 videos that I posted when I started uploading daily or almost every day several years ago. And I actually reviewed it with the remake and talked about both of them simultaneously. But I wanted an opportunity to talk about this movie by itself and kind of just focus on everything that makes it special. And this is a movie that I revisit quite often. I think it's a really perfect example of what makes an incredible slasher film. And even though some of it's really cheesy and over the top and goofy, I really think that this movie has some powerful things to say, and I also think at the time period that it was released in, this was sort of subverting audiences' expectations for what you would normally expect in a slasher movie, and really doing something awesome with it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Slumber Party Massacre today. The Slumber Party Massacre is directed by Amy Holden Jones. Trish invites her high school basketball teammates over for a night they'll never forget or survive when an unexpected guest crashes the party, an escaped psychopath with a portable power drill. So, like I said, I absolutely love this movie, and there are a ton of reasons for that. The one in particular that I think, and I love talking about this with this movie, Amy Holden Jones having a woman direct a slasher film in this time period when the slasher genre was so oversaturated by men creating these movies. She does something really unique with this in her approach, and I'm going to be excited to tell you a little bit about it later. But I always think it's really cool to watch this through that lens where you have a genre of film that so many people know and they understand what's going to happen next, but to have someone who's looking at it from a different perspective and doing things where some of the stereotypes and the tropes that exist in the genre are there, but I also feel like they're done in a way that make you think about it a little bit more, which I'm really excited to tell you about today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Trish and her group of friends. They're at basketball practice, and we learn early on in the movie Russ Thorne, this killer who is in a jean jacket and blue jeans, is going around with a portable power drill and murdering people throughout this community that they live in. And Trish is trying to get close to this new girl, Valerie, who has just recently moved in to the community, and she tries to invite her to the party that she's going to have while her parents are out of town. But there's some conflict with the other girls in her group. They don't all get along. They're like, oh, she's the outsider, whatever. And so it causes some tension, and she kind of runs out of basketball practice really upset by the situation. Well, we see a scene early on where Russ Thorne shows up at the school. He ends up killing this woman who's working for the telephone company, and he also ends up killing one of the girls who goes back into the gym to go retrieve one of her textbooks. And the girls eventually end up at Trish's house, and Valerie lives a few houses down from Trish. And they start having this slumber party together. The only person that's around is their neighbor, Mr. Content, who is a very strange individual. But he's like, listen, if you don't get into any trouble, I'll just make sure everything's okay out here so that, nothing goes wrong. And they're hanging out at this slumber party. Obviously, this guy shows up and starts killing them off one by one. And it's all about these girls and a couple of boys that show up later trying to fight for their survival from this killer. So, like I said, this movie is really awesome for a multitude of reasons. But for starters, I want to talk about the kills in this movie. I feel like for the time period, the practical effects that they use in this, they're really great. There's a lot of implied kills because I can imagine with budgetary restraints, there's only so much that you could get away with on screen. But there's a couple of moments in this, with a drill bit kind of going through somebody's throat, certain things like that. There's really visceral, disgusting imagery that you can sort of piece together in your head as well that I think makes for a fun movie. With slashers, I think creativity and kills is really what makes these movies so much fun, and there's definitely a lot of creativity in this film. Secondly, I really like the performances in this movie. While some of it can come across as extremely corny because of the time period, a lot of times when you watch movies from this era, I feel like they can feel dated, but I really think there's something about about the friendship between this group of girls, and then like the bond between Valerie and her younger sister, that really make the movie easy to watch. I talk about this with slasher movies all the time, but like even if you don't have the most likable characters, they have to be interesting. You have to have something that makes you want to continue to watch, or that you can attach yourself onto, so that when they're put in danger that you actually care. And I think the movie does a really great job establishing a bunch of characters that you can actually root for, or at least be interested in. That dynamic between Valerie and her sister, I think, is one of the strongest in the movie. I also really like the incorporation of the basketball coach or the gym teacher that's at the school. I think she adds a lot to the movie as well. And there's just a really distinct personality that this movie has that I feel like not every slasher manages to achieve. And that's something that I really like a lot. I also like that like the killer is shown to you almost immediately, and that the performance from this actor who plays Russ, it's just very menacing and disturbing. And he always has like a really like horrific expression on his face, which while you're watching it, you're just kind of curious as to when he's going to strike, or to what extreme he's going to commit these severe murders. And that's another thing that works really well for me personally for the movie. And I also really like the score to this film. I feel like it's sort of around the realm of a lot of scores that you hear in this particular time period with horror films, but there's something about it that's really memorable to me. There's certain moments of the music throughout that stick out in my brain that I think make the movie work really well. But what I find so fascinating about this, like I said, is Amy Holden Jones made this in a particular time where the horror genre and slasher films, especially, get very overpopulated by men. And what you know about slasher movies is you're going to see a lot of naked women. There's going to probably be some misogyny, and the way that it's approached, you know those tropes, and you can kind of check mark them off in your brain. But what I like what Amy Holden Jones does here is she sort of subverts that. Like at the beginning of the movie, I think one of the very first scenes is Trish early on in the movie. She's literally like just getting naked in her room and putting on her outfit for school for the day. And then like later on when they're at the gym, they're like in the showers after they played basketball. But the conversations that they're having together is are so mundane and just normal. And it feels like all the like hyper over sexualization that you get in a lot of slasher movies, it's very refined in this particular case. It's very much like a, hey, human bodies are human bodies, like these are just people existing, but doing it in that slasher format to kind of like poke at it a little bit. And it's something that I really like a lot. And then all the girls that are in this, there's some boy talk here and there, but most of the movie they're discussing like sports, and they're talking about like, there's one particular gag that goes on through the movie. They're trying to figure out who scored the 6 runs for the Dodgers in the game that night. Like they're all really interested in baseball. And I like that a lot. It was kind of like showcasing like, hey, we typically portray women in slasher films in one particular way, kind of like airheaded and dumb. And in this case, we're going to show them as real human beings with personalities and interests. And I like that a lot. And they also kind of portray the men in this movie as kind of bumbling buffoons. Like most of the men in this movie are dumb. And like especially the two boys that come over and like balk the party, like their idea for how to save the day or whatever. It's like girls immediately are like, this is dumb. Like why would you want to do this? But they feel really chivalrous, and like they have to be the ones to take the forefront. I think there's a lot of really interesting commentary laden throughout the film, even in those little subtle things. But obviously the more overt, not so subtle thing is the phallic nature of the drill that the killer uses, and then a lot of the conversations throughout the end of the movie that really sort of parallel to people's experiences with sexual assault and rape, where he's saying like, hey, you know you love me, you want this, like all of these different things that women hear. And I feel like the end of this movie is a relatively somber tone when the violence starts carrying itself out. And I feel like it's very meditative on the experiences of women who have experienced horrible situations when it comes to assault. And I think utilizing a slasher movie that's only an hour and 20 minutes long to pay any sort of commentary to that, even in regards to the time period, because it's not like now. I mean, I can go back through the past 5 years and talk about slasher films that like discuss assault and kind of like get like hinting at like commentating on the evil of assault and the people being held accountable, all of those different things, especially post like the Me Too movement era. But like to come out in this particular period of time and to have a movie that's a very fun, entertaining ride that also has moments that can talk about some of that very heavy subject matter. I think it's very well made, and it's really cool that a director in this particular period in time was able to make a piece of art that still resonates to this day. That's also very fun, and there's one scene in particular involving pizza in this movie that is probably one of my favorite scenes in a slasher film, period. And I just love revisiting this one. I feel like anytime I watch it, I grow to love it more. And if you've never seen it before and you are a proclaimed fan of slasher films, I think you definitely need to see it at least once. So if you've seen the Slumber Party Massacre, do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I think this movie is incredible. I love revisiting it, and I think it's a ton of fun. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.